And we start with our top story. President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to address the nation on South Africa's energy crisis. Now, the SABC will carry the address live on its channels. The presidency says this follows consultations that the president has held with business, civil society, labor and others. Now, South Africans recently endured stage 6 load shedding as Eskom battled to keep the lights on amid an unprotected strike. There have been calls for South Africa to follow the lead of countries like Vietnam that substantially reduced its energy problems by assisting people add solar power to their homes or businesses and sell the excess energy into the national grid.
Well, it is a long-awaited address after many groups have called for urgent action following this crippling stage 6 rolling blackouts. We're now joined by Prof Sampson Mamphweli, energy expert from Stellenbosch University's Centre for Renewable Sustainable Energy Studies. Professor, thank you for being with us as always. Is not the big issue here that we're just not putting up new power plants or anything to produce more power, be it clean or dirty? And how quickly can that change?
Good evening to you and the viewers. So we know that this problem has got history. It started a long time ago with the white paper on renewable energy, identifying this problem long time ago. And ever since then, there's never been a coordinated kind of efforts to try and resolve the problem. I still remember vividly, somewhere around 2009, there was an announcement of a 20 billion rands that was going to be used to try and resolve the problem. Ever since then, that 20 billion rand came and left, and the problem remained. And that was largely because there was no properly coordinated plan to resolve the crisis. The plan came in the form of the Integrated Resource Plan in 2019. That was implemented to a certain extent until the previous administration started talking about the nuclear build, and that just defocused them from implementing the plan. In 2019, the plan was revised to the Integrated Resource Plan 2019, which is now being implemented. However, the government is basically playing catch-up in terms of implementation of the Integrated Resource Plan. It has now been outdated, in my view. We need a new Integrated Resource Plan. What we expect from the president today, after all these consultations, is that he's going to come up with some short-term kind of measures to ease the pressure on the grid.
So give me examples of short-term measures. And one of the big debates has been around companies or individuals or businesses able to really put their own power back to use it themselves or even add to the grid. And there's that 100 megawatt limit. Thereafter, you need a license. But some are saying that's completely arbitrary. Would a short-term measure involve reducing that cap and allowing anybody who can produce energy to do so?
Yes, so we've got a number of long-term measures. Before getting to that question, the government has opened up for municipalities to buy power directly from IPPs. That's a long-term measure. The IPPs are allowed to produce up to 100 megawatts. That's a long-term measure because building a 100 megawatts plant takes about 2 years. The implementation of the energy plan, which is the Integrated Resource Plan, which Minister Mantashe is implementing and is implementing it well so far. The 2,000 megawatts risk mitigation procurement that we were supposed to be having coming live quite soon. We have part of that being built now by Skytech Solar, a big solar plant with some battery storage. And thanks to government for that. The Eskom has already streamlined the wheeling process for electricity produced by IPPs, so you could produce electricity from a distant location and take it through Eskom power lines, so to speak, to your customer wherever the customer could be. And those are all both medium-term to long-term kind of solutions. So in terms of the short-term solutions, We're looking at things such as a detailed studies on things such as battery storage facilities, big battery storage facilities, coupled with what we've just said. Because what we've seen in the grid is that there are times where we produce a bit more than what we're taking, especially during the day. And we curtail that power, and that is coming mainly from the solar energy that we have. And we curtail it because at that point in time, the grid is not constrained. But later, the grid gets constrained and we need power from somewhere, and then we only need to then implement load shedding. So the battery storage thing, I expect that the president will announce something along those lines. The demand side management, where we need to ease the pressure on the grid by implementing energy efficiency devices, measures, and demand side management activities. Ghana has done something like this when they were under pressure, and it worked wonders. In South Africa, we didn't have load shedding between 2013 and 2015 to a greater extent because of the demand side management that Eskom embarked on between 2008 and 2011.
Professor,
so that
can you explain demand side management? How do you reduce demand?
So what happens is at industry level, for instance, you've got some systems or some machines that are very old that take a lot of electricity. You would find a machine, say for instance, that takes about 500 kilowatt when it's operating. So what happens is that we have what we call the energy services companies that will go into the industry and look at such kind of machines and say, you have this machine that takes 500 kilowatt when it's operating, that demands 500 kilowatt. There's a new machine the technology is advanced. We can bring in a machine that will take 100 kilowatt as opposed to 500 kilowatts, for instance. And the balance of you will only be able to pay us from the balance of the savings over a number of years. So Eskom then comes in that situation where they send a team to go and measure the demand of and consumption of that machine that is in place, and then later they will come and measure the savings to confirm whether this energy services company has actually made the customer to save, and then the customer only pays from the savings that they made. So Eskom ran that kind of a program for quite a long time, and they saved a lot of megawatts back then. They also implemented something very simple: changing of lights from the traditional incandescent light bulbs to the fluorescent bulbs. So your incandescent bulbs would take would be about 100 watts and 60 watts. They changed those to between 20 watts and 15 watts and below. And through that program only, they managed to create a virtual power station. So they managed to save the amount of electricity that was equivalent to a small power station. So those are some of the things that they can do in terms of demand side management, both at homes and industry. And we've got the capacity because Eskom was using teams from universities and elsewhere in the National System of Innovation in terms of doing the measurement and verification.
Professor, final question. There have been these bid windows for renewable energy, the IPPs, the independent power producers. Some want that to be speeded up or those windows to be expanded. To what extent are renewables the answer here? Because Eskom and others talk about baseload power, which is always on. Renewables dependent on wind and sun. You spoke about the batteries, but they're pretty expensive. I mean, how quickly could we go big on renewables, and how quickly could we end rolling blackouts?
So to build renewable energy power plants is much quicker than building the fossil-based power plants. You can build them much faster and within budget. That is a known fact. In terms of the contribution of renewable energy, we could have been in a worse state if it was not for renewable energy, especially the wind energy part. The solar part we've been using during the day, but as I indicated, we need some form of storage to take advantage of the additional power that we get from solar energy. it would take about 2 years to roll out renewable energy projects at a scale that we require for us to be able to avoid load shedding. It's when you look at the South African grid, it all boils down to planning. I can't say that renewable energy is the only solution to our problem. Renewable energy is part of the solution to our problem. Gas is also part of the solution to our problem, which is one stage below coal in terms of the emissions. What needs to happen is a proper planning, because if you look at our load, we don't necessarily have base load that is sitting at a certain megawatts. We've got our load is variable, and if we plan against such variability, using the actual all the energy mix that we have, we can actually introduce more renewable energy into the grid and supply the electricity without fail. And that can be done. It's an easy kind of a situation that needs the proper modeling.
All right, and that is something that people often ask for when government presents these plans. Give us the real nitty-gritty, the real detail. There's a gap now of up to 6,000 megawatts projected to expand exponentially into the future. How will we close those gaps and make sure we are never in this position again? Thank you very much, Professor Sampson Mamphweli, energy expert from Stellenbosch University.